When my 5-year marriage to Vanessa ended, I was sleeping on my buddy's couch with $12,000 of debt and a beat-up Honda Civic that barely started. The divorce drained what little savings we had, and she got the house since her name was on the mortgage. Fast forward 3 years, my tech startup just sold for 8 figures. I bought my dream home on the lake, and suddenly Vanessa was texting me again. First, it was casual congratulations about the company sale she had seen in the local business journal. Then came the reminiscing about the good times we had. Finally, she suggested meeting for coffee to catch up. I knew exactly what she was trying to do. Drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had someone from your past try to come back around once your situation improved. Before my unexpected financial success, Vanessa and I had what most people would consider a typical middle-class existence in suburban Michigan. We met during our senior year of college at a mutual friend's Halloween party. I was immediately drawn to her confidence and quick wit. That night we talked until the party wound down, exchanging numbers and meeting for coffee the very next day. Our relationship progressed quickly. 6 months after graduation, we were engaged, and we married in a modest ceremony a year later. Early in our relationship, I had entrepreneurial aspirations, constantly discussing ideas for startups and innovative products. Vanessa initially seemed supportive, nodding along as I described my latest concept over dinner or sketched product designs on restaurant napkins. "You have such a creative mind," she would say, though. I later realized her enthusiasm never translated into substantive encouragement. We both found entry-level positions after college, Vanessa in marketing for a regional supermarket chain, and me as a software developer for an insurance company. The work was stable but uninspiring, especially for me. I spent evenings and weekends developing side projects, hoping one might eventually allow me to quit the corporate job I increasingly dreaded. 2 years into our marriage, an opportunity arose. My friend Daniel, a talented engineer, approached me about co-developing an app that would streamline inventory management for small businesses. We believed it filled a genuine market need, and preliminary research suggested significant potential. I was ecstatic, and immediately shared the news with Vanessa. Her response was lukewarm at best. "That sounds interesting," she said without looking up from her phone, "but when would you have time for that?" "We are saving for a house down payment. Remember." This reaction established a pattern that would define the remainder of our marriage. Whenever I discussed entrepreneurial ambitions, Vanessa would emphasize financial security and conventional milestones: the house furniture for the house, a newer car, the right neighborhood. These weren't unreasonable desires, but they became weapons against any deviation from the traditional career path she envisioned. Despite her discouragement, I continued working with Daniel on evenings and weekends, funding our prototype development with my personal savings. Vanessa's irritation grew with every late night and missed social engagement. "I did not sign up to be married to someone who is never around," became her frequent complaint. The fact that I maintained my full-time job while pursuing this side project did little to mitigate her resentment. The tension escalated when Vanessa found a house she wanted to purchase, a 3-bedroom colonial in a desirable school district. The timing couldn't have been worse. Daniel and I were at a critical development stage and needed additional capital to finalize our prototype before approaching investors. "This is our dream home," Vanessa insisted. "If we wait, someone else will buy it." "We can find another house later," I countered. This opportunity with the startup might not come around again. The argument that followed revealed the fundamental disconnect in our values and aspirations. Vanessa viewed financial success exclusively through the lens of stable employment and gradual advancement. My desire to build something innovative, even at the risk of temporary financial uncertainty, was incomprehensible to her. "Grow up," she finally said. 99% of startups fail. This fantasy is going to ruin us." In the end, Vanessa's name alone went on the mortgage for the colonial house. She had better credit and a more consistent income history, which made financial sense. However, this decision would later have significant implications when our marriage began to unravel. For approximately 18 months, I attempted to balance my corporate job, the side project with Daniel, and my deteriorating marriage. Vanessa and I grew increasingly distant. Our conversations revolved around household expenses and scheduling with little genuine connection. Intimacy dwindled, then disappeared entirely. The breaking point came when Daniel and I secured a meeting with a potential investor. The meeting was scheduled during normal business hours, requiring me to take a personal day from work. When I informed Vanessa, she was furious. "You are taking a day off for this pipe dream. instead of saving your vacation days for our anniversary trip, she demanded. This has to stop, Jake. You need to choose what is important to you. In that moment, I realized we had fundamentally different definitions of what made a life worthwhile. For Vanessa, security and conventional success were paramount. For me, creating something meaningful, regardless of the financial outcome, had become essential to my sense of purpose. I think we want different things, I said quietly. Apparently so, she replied. 2 weeks later, Vanessa suggested we separate. Though painful, it felt like an acknowledgement of an increasingly obvious truth: we had grown in incompatible directions. The logistics, however, proved far more complicated than the decision itself. The divorce process revealed aspects of Vanessa's character I hadn't fully recognized during our marriage. What began as an amicable separation quickly devolved into a calculated dismantling of our shared life, with Vanessa securing every possible advantage. Since her name alone was on the mortgage, the house was indisputably hers in the legal proceedings. This seemed reasonable until she also claimed entitlement to half of my retirement account and savings, which had diminished significantly due to my investment in the startup. Her rationale was that my hobby business had diverted funds that should have gone toward our shared goals, constituting a form of financial misconduct. My attorney advised fighting this characterization, but the legal fees would have exceeded the amounts in question. I reluctantly agreed to a settlement that left me with minimal savings and significant credit card debt accumulated during our final year together. The emotional toll matched the financial one. Mutual friends uncomfortable with taking sides gradually stopped, including me in gatherings. Vanessa's narrative that my obsession with an unrealistic business venture had destroyed our marriage became the accepted version of events among our social circle. Few knew about her consistent undermining of my goals or her ultimatums regarding my career choices. In the immediate aftermath, I found myself essentially starting over at 30. I moved into my friend Mark's spare room, working remotely from his dining table during the day, and continuing development work with Daniel during evenings. My Honda Civic, which had shown warning signs even before the divorce, now required weekly attention to remain operational. Vanessa's life, by contrast, seemed to progress smoothly. Through social media updates, I couldn't help but notice. I watched her renovate the colonial house, take an extended European vacation, and eventually begin dating a regional bank manager who embodied the stability and conventional success she valued. These observations, though painful, ultimately proved motivational. I channeled my frustration into productive work, finding unexpected freedom in having nothing left to lose. Without Vanessa's constant skepticism, Daniel and I accelerated our development timeline, working 16-hour days to complete our prototype. 3 months after finalizing the divorce, we secured our first significant investment, $500,000, from a venture capital firm specializing in business management software. This funding allowed me to quit my corporate job and devote myself entirely to the startup. We hired 2 additional developers and moved into a modest office space in a renovated warehouse downtown. The following 18 months were a blur of intense work setbacks and incremental victories. We launched our product and inventory management system called StockSense to limited initial interest. The first version had significant flaws that early users quickly identified. Rather than becoming discouraged, we viewed this feedback as invaluable data, implementing improvements weekly based on actual user experiences. This responsive approach gradually built customer loyalty. Small business owners appreciated our attentiveness to their needs and willingness to customize features. Word of mouth brought new clients, and our reputation for exceptional customer service began to distinguish us from larger, less flexible competitors. By the second year post-divorce, StockSense had achieved stable profitability with over 5,000 small business subscribers. Daniel and I were finally paying ourselves reasonable salaries, though we continued reinvesting most profits into development. I moved from Mark's spare room into a modest 1-bedroom apartment and replaced the failing Honda with a reliable used Toyota. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A representative from Shopify Plus contacted us about potentially integrating StockSense into their platform for small to mid-sized retailers. The negotiations stretched over 6 months, evolving from a simple integration discussion to conversations about acquisition. When they presented their initial offer, $8 million for the company, Daniel and I were stunned. After counteroffers and due diligence, the final agreement settled at $12 million split between us and our early investors. My personal share after taxes came to just over $4 million. The acquisition made regional business news, with our small company highlighted as a local success story. The headline, "Hometown Developers Strike Gold with Small Business Software," was accompanied by photos of Daniel and me outside our warehouse office. The article briefly mentioned our journey from late-night coding sessions to multi-million-dollar acquisition, describing it as an entrepreneurial fairy tale. Within hours of the article's publication online, my phone buzzed with a text notification from a number I still recognized, despite having deleted the contact years earlier. "Jake just saw the news. So proud of what you've accomplished. Would love to catch up sometime. Vanessa." I stared at the message for several minutes, a complex mixture of emotions washing over me. The validation was undeniably satisfying. The woman who had dismissed my aspirations as a fantasy and pipe dream was now witnessing exactly the outcome I had envisioned. Yet beneath that satisfaction lay a more troubling realization: had the business failed, I would never have received this message. I chose not to respond immediately, setting the phone aside to focus on finalizing acquisition details. But over the next several days, Vanessa's outreach continued with increasing persistence. "Remember that little Italian place on Cherry Street? Still think about their tiramisu sometimes. We should grab dinner there for old time's sake. Saw your mom at the grocery store yesterday. She mentioned you bought a place on Lake Michigan. Sounds amazing, would love to see it sometime." Each message carried the same subtext: "Now that you're successful, I'm interested again." The transparent nature of her renewed attention was both amusing and somewhat sad. The final text, arriving nearly a week after the first, removed all subtlety. "Been doing a lot of thinking about us lately. Maybe we gave up too easily. Coffee sometime to talk about it." After careful consideration, I replied with a brief but clear message. "Congratulations on your engagement to Richard. Wishing you both the best." Her profile picture, with the bank manager prominently displaying an engagement ring, had been posted 3 months earlier. Her subsequent silence confirmed what I had suspected: this wasn't about genuine reconnection, but about opportunity and regret. In the months following the acquisition, my life transformed in ways both expected and surprising. The financial windfall provided immediate freedom, but I quickly discovered that money alone doesn't create fulfillment. After a brief period of celebration, including a 2-week vacation to New Zealand I had always dreamed of, I began carefully considering how to structure my post-acquisition life. My first major decision was purchasing property, not as a status symbol, but as a long-held dream. I found a modernist house on 3 acres, overlooking Lake Michigan, with floor-to-ceiling windows that captured spectacular sunsets, and a private path leading down to the water. The design featured an open office overlooking the lake, creating the ideal environment for whatever projects might come next. While the house represented my largest expenditure, I allocated most of the acquisition proceeds to diversified investments. My experience with financial instability, during and after the divorce, had instilled caution. Working with a fiduciary financial advisor, I established a portfolio designed for long-term growth and sustainable income. This approach allowed me to pursue new ventures without the pressure of immediate profitability. Approximately 2 months after moving into the lake house, I received an email from a different and unexpected figure from my past: Trevor Anderson, Vanessa's brother. Unlike Vanessa, Trevor and I had maintained a cordial, if distant, relationship after the divorce. His message expressed genuine congratulations on the business success, without any apparent ulterior motive. "Mom mentioned you're back in town with some major business win under your belt. Good for you, man. Would be great to catch up if you're ever free for a beer." I had always appreciated Trevor's straightforward nature, and agreed to meet at a local brewery the following week. Our conversation was surprisingly comfortable, as if the intervening years had created just enough distance to discuss the past objectively. After updating each other on career developments and mutual acquaintances, Trevor hesitantly broached the subject of his sister. "So has Vanessa been in touch?" he asked, studying his beer glass with unusual intensity. "She texted a few times after the acquisition news broke," I acknowledged. "I didn't engage much." Trevor nodded, seeming unsurprised. "Probably for the best. She and Richard are having issues. The engagement might be off." This information explained the sudden interest in reconnecting, though I felt no satisfaction in their relationship difficulties. Trevor continued filling in the gaps in my knowledge about Vanessa's post-divorce life. Despite appearances on social media, her career had stalled, with 2 position changes in 3 years yielding little advancement. The colonial house, once her dream home, now required expensive repairs she was struggling to afford. Richard, the bank manager, had recently been passed over for promotion, creating tension in their relationship. "Look," Trevor said. "Finally, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but she's mentioned your windfall multiple times at family dinners. Started talking about how she always believed in you, and how she supported your dreams even when they seemed impossible." He made air quotes around these phrases, his expression conveying exactly how revisionist this history was. "It's pretty transparent," he continued. "Mom called her out on it last Sunday, asking where this support was when you were actually building the business. It got pretty heated." This revelation prompted an unexpected emotional response, not satisfaction or vindication, but a profound sense of having moved beyond the dynamics that once consumed me. Vanessa's attempts to rewrite our history no longer held power over my self-perception or happiness. "Trevor, I appreciate the insight, but honestly, it's not something I spend much time thinking about anymore," I told him truthfully. "I've moved on to things that matter more." He smiled, raising his glass in a small toast. "That's probably the best revenge, isn't it? Actually being happy." That conversation with Trevor brought unexpected closure. While Vanessa continued occasional outreach attempts, including a surprisingly direct Facebook message suggesting that she had always regretted how things ended, these communications generated nothing beyond mild amusement and occasional pity. My focus remained firmly on building a meaningful life post-acquisition. Rather than rushing into another startup, I began mentoring early-stage entrepreneurs at the local university's business incubator. Sharing knowledge and experience with passionate young founders proved deeply satisfying, allowing me to remain connected to innovation without the all-consuming pressure of my previous venture. I also reconnected with interests abandoned during the intense startup years, playing guitar in a casual weekend band, joining a sailing club on Lake Michigan, and volunteering with a program teaching coding skills to underprivileged youth. These activities created a social circle, entirely disconnected from my previous life with Vanessa, consisting of people who knew me only as I was now, not as I had been during the difficult divorce period. Dating resumed gradually and cautiously. My experiences had made me wary of partners potentially interested in financial status rather than genuine connection. I developed subtle methods for gauging motivations, deliberately downplaying my business success in initial interactions, and observing reactions when the topic inevitably arose. This caution proved warranted. Several promising connections cooled noticeably when I mentioned mentoring rather than actively running a company, suggesting expectations of an extravagant lifestyle that didn't align with my relatively modest approach to wealth. Others displayed sudden increased interest upon discovering the lake house or inadvertently learning about the acquisition amount. Approximately 8 months after the acquisition, a particularly illuminating incident occurred at a charity gala I attended as part of my mentorship program responsibilities. I encountered Vanessa unexpectedly, her presence, explained by Richard's banking connections to the event sponsors. Her transformation upon noticing me was immediate and dramatic, from polite networking to effusive warmth within seconds. "Jake, what a wonderful surprise," she exclaimed, embracing me as if we were long-lost friends rather than ex-spouses who had barely communicated in 3 years. "You look absolutely amazing. Success clearly suits you." The conversation that followed was a masterclass in strategic rewriting of history. According to Vanessa's new narrative, she had always been my biggest supporter, had merely expressed reasonable concerns about timing, and had ultimately separated from me because she didn't want to hold me back from achieving greatness. Rather than contradicting these creative revisions, I simply listened with neutral interest. When she suggested meeting for lunch to really catch up properly, I politely declined, citing my busy schedule with mentoring and community projects. "You always were so dedicated to helping others," she said, touching my arm lightly. "That's one of the things I always admired about you." Richard appeared then, clearly noticing our interaction from across the room. His expression as he approached conveyed unmistakable tension. The brief introduction that followed was awkward, with Vanessa overcompensating through excessive animation, and Richard offering a handshake that communicated both assessment and competition. As I excused myself from their company, I overheard Richard ask tersely, "So that's the famous ex-husband?" To which Vanessa replied, "Just being polite, honey. Networking is important at these events." The encounter, while uncomfortable in the moment, provided valuable perspective. I recognized Vanessa's behavior as exactly what Trevor had described, a calculated effort to position herself advantageously in relation to my newfound success. What might once have felt like vindication now generated only a detached compassion for someone still measuring relationships primarily through material and status metrics. More importantly, the interaction clarified my own growth. The validation I had initially craved after the divorce, proof that my entrepreneurial instincts had been right all along, no longer held significance. Success had not changed who I fundamentally was. It had simply removed certain practical constraints and created new possibilities for meaningful contribution. Looking back on the 3 years since the acquisition, I've come to recognize that financial success after divorce provided an unexpected gift beyond material comfort. It offered clarity about people's motivations and values, including my own. Vanessa's attempts to reconnect continued sporadically for approximately a year after our encounter at the charity gala. Each outreach followed a similar pattern: casual references to shared memories, suggestions for innocent catch-up meetings, and subtle reminders of her current relationship difficulties. I maintained polite but firm boundaries, responding occasionally with brief, friendly, but conclusive messages that offered no opening for further engagement. The most direct attempt came after her relationship with Richard ended permanently. A late-night text. "Been thinking about how different things might have been if I'd believed in you." More revealed both a rare moment of self-awareness and a continued failure to understand that our incompatibility went far deeper than her skepticism about my business aspirations. My response: "I hope you find what you're looking for, Vanessa, but we both know it isn't," with me marked the final exchange in our post-divorce communication. She never reached out again, and social media updates eventually revealed a move to another state and a new relationship. This resolution with Vanessa paralleled a broader pattern in my post-acquisition life. The financial windfall acted as a powerful filtering mechanism, revealing the authentic nature of various relationships. Some connections strengthened, others dissolved, and new ones formed based on shared values rather than circumstantial convenience. My parents, who had worried constantly during the startup's uncertain early phases, finally relaxed when they saw not just my financial security but my genuine contentment with the life I was building. "You seem at peace," my mother observed during their first visit to the lake house. "That matters more than anything else." Daniel, my co-founder and friend throughout the challenging years, remained a constant presence, despite launching his own new venture. We established a tradition of monthly dinners, where business talk was prohibited, focusing instead on books, ideas, family, and personal growth. His partnership during the difficult years had created a bond that transcended our professional collaboration. Perhaps most significantly, I found an unexpected romantic connection through my mentoring work at the university incubator. Elise, a professor of entrepreneurial ethics, approached me after a panel discussion with pointed questions about how we had handled competitive pressures during StockSense's growth phase. Her intellectual curiosity and fundamental integrity were immediately appealing. Our relationship developed gradually over coffee meetings, ostensibly focused on creating a case study about StockSense for her students. Unlike previous post-divorce dating experiences, Elise showed zero interest in material aspects of my success, frequently challenging my thinking about the responsibilities that came with financial privilege. 6 months into dating, when she finally visited the lake house, her primary reaction was concern about the environmental impact of lakefront development, rather than admiration of the property itself. This authentic connection based on shared values and mutual respect, rather than external markers of success, represented the most meaningful outcome of my post-divorce journey. 2 years into our relationship, Elise and I now share the lake house, though she insisted on contributing proportionally to household expenses despite the obvious disparity in our financial situations. The irony of finding genuine partnership only after achieving the success that had created such conflict in my marriage is not lost on me. Had the business failed, had the divorce left me permanently struggling financially, I might never have experienced the clarity that allowed me to recognize and appreciate a relationship based on authentic connection rather than conventional expectations. Financial success after divorce also enabled perhaps the most meaningful aspect of my current life: the ability to create opportunity for others. Beyond mentoring, I established a small fund, providing microgrants to promising entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. These investments require no equity or repayment, only the commitment to eventually support others in similar ways if successful. When I contrast my life now with the restrictions and constant justifications required during my marriage, the fundamental incompatibility becomes even clearer. Vanessa's vision of success, the White House car vacation photos, and social standing represented a fundamentally different value system than my own desire: to create, contribute, and connect meaningfully. The painful irony of her renewed interest after the acquisition was that money had never been my primary motivation for building the business. The freedom to pursue meaningful work, create value for users, and eventually help others do the same had always driven me more than financial outcomes. This fundamental misalignment, not just her skepticism about the business itself, had doomed our relationship from the start. If there's wisdom to share from this experience, it's that compatibility in core values matters infinitely more than agreement on surface details. Vanessa and I could have compromised on house features, vacation destinations, or daily schedules. We could not reconcile fundamentally different definitions of what constitutes a life well lived. For those navigating similar challenges, whether entrepreneurial pursuits against partner skepticism or rebuilding after divorce, I found that the path forward lies in radical honesty about personal values. Success, however you define it, rarely comes from compromising these core principles, even when standing firm creates temporary hardship or isolation. The acquisition didn't change who I was. It simply removed certain constraints and revealed more clearly who others were in relation to me. The financial windfall created a unique form of freedom, not just material options, but the clarity to recognize authentic connections distinguished from transactional or conditional ones. Vanessa's attempts to re-enter my life after financial success revealed more about her values than she likely intended. While initially satisfying to my wounded ego, her behavior ultimately generated compassion rather than resentment. We all seek security and connection. We simply differ in how we believe these needs should be fulfilled. Have you ever experienced someone from your past suddenly reappearing after your circumstances improved? How did you handle it? And what did the experience teach you about authentic relationships versus opportunistic ones? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more explorations of how life transitions reveal our true values and priorities. Share with someone who might be struggling with similar challenges, whether entrepreneurial doubts or post-divorce rebuilding. Thank you for joining me on this reflection, and remember that sometimes the greatest gift of success is not what it adds to your life, but what it clarifies about who and what truly matters.